So we left. But right now, we're coming back of His Excellency, my brother. Praise God for building. We are now, when we go there, you will be very surprised.
Dangote is also building a seaport in Ogun State. Even Osun State, I would like to say Kino Shembe. I want to read you something from Osun State, but just give me a second. I want to quickly check out YouTube. We had a little hiccup just now. I already had a number of people there who are already enjoying the show. It's quite crazy the way this thing just goes off. It might be it's technical issues, so I'll have to do something about Facebook later. Just give me a second, please. Okay. Okay, I think YouTube is good. I'm going to work on the other device so that we can bring Facebook back. I'm going to say, not over. Okay, apologies to those of us on YouTube. Sorry about that. Technical issues, but we're glad you're back. Okay, so I was saying, someone said what's wrong. No, I don't want to talk about what. I don't know what happened between himself and Dangote at the time, because I don't understand why they were having those issues. So you have cement factories opening up, cement plants opening up in Ogun State. You have all these things. You have your governors building rail lines and light rails and stuff, and you can't even laud them or acknowledge what they're doing, because if you do that, that's because you're a bigot. Because why on earth would you be celebrating your bad governor? It's not supposed to be so. We're supposed to support somebody that gave us fountain. Let me just sort this thing once and for all. Welcome back on YouTube. Let's do the same for folks on Facebook and on Twitch. Mumbo. By the way, I went to check our replays. I noticed I usually say Mumbo. And I don't see any problem with it. But I know that some people say things like, you're speaking Yoruba. I'm Yoruba. It comes with the territory. 1 second, please. All right. I think we're good now. So let's wrap up on this whole thing, and then we'll call it a day. So yeah, that was Dangote speaking about the Tory plant in Ogun State, and that they've had some issues over time, but eventually they're now working with the governor of Ogun State, Governor Dapo Abiodun. There are different things happening. So I mentioned earlier that I want to read something to you from Osun State. Even the states that you tend to think, like you are still saying the government needs to do better, you'll be shocked that the worst of some of these governors, and by the way, I'm only saying this because of comparison, which I don't like to do, as you know, but sometimes we need to say these things as well. Okay? It's called that the worst of this guy is going to compare with the best of this ones. But I'm going to find that video and play it for you. Just give me a second. I hope people are okay. Our folks are back on YouTube. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Please power tap on YouTube. Just like the live and subscribe. Apologies for the glitch. That was due to a technical error. But I'm glad you're back. All right. So yeah, I was going to tell you about the governor of Osun State, and like I said, we always trying to get their feet in the fire, ask them to do more. But I also like a breakdown of some of the things that he has done. Completion of Oshogbo Iwo Oyo State Boundary Road. 5,940,793,414 naira 71 kobo. Completion of Oshogbo Ikirun Initial Kwara State Boundary Phase 3, 13,708,309,766,000. 13,708,309,766 naira 47 kobo. Reconstruction of 5.1 kilometers Igbo Isoko Aye Ogoro Road, 3,018,747,965 naira 97 kobo. Dualization of 6.6 kilometers Odori Junction, Post Office Junction. You know, there's a lot of stuff being done. Rehabilitation of 32 kilometers Ejigbo Iwo Road in 2 phases. Construction of 8.5 kilometers Iragberi Kotunara Road. Dualization of 3.5. I mean, there's lots and lots of things that he has done. I'm going to put the images when we put out this video. I'm going to put the images so you get to see that. Now, we need a lot more, by the way. Like, this government seems to get really serious, right? Because, again, people that say the bar is low in this country, okay? This is 2026 for crying out loud. There are some things that we want to see, especially in the western, in southwestern region. In Yoruba land, you know, so once 7 kobo, okay, when I put out the videos, you see there's a breakdown of every project and the associated costs. I'll put out the images when the video goes out. All of that to say that, I mean, I'm not even trying to use Lagos or just Lagos State or Osun State or your state. Lagos State or Ogun State or your state. You can still mention Osun, see what they're doing on those states, what they're doing in Ekiti State. And like I said, they need to do better, but we should also appreciate what they're doing well so that we don't get in this space where you tend to criticize everything good about yourself, but the person who is doing the bare minimum, way less than what your elders are doing, what your leaders are doing, they're celebrated in their homeland, but then you are not permitted to celebrate your own. It should not happen. That there's a video here of a road 10.5 kilometers Oshogbo Ikirun Ila Odo Kwara boundary dual carriageway, 10.5 kilometers. The work is ongoing on the 3rd phase of the road. This was in November 2025, so hopefully they must have finished it now. But then there's another image here, interestingly, and again we have to compare. It's like a road that they said somebody built in Abia State. It'd be like say water don't they wash but show you something. It'd be like sand, we then carry asphalt, just pour on top. But it's good governance apparently. Okay, everybody will be all right. But congratulations to the owner of the Ultimum plant, you know, in Abia State. All right, but the crazy part for me is just that you have a plant. Is that a drink or can come? Meanwhile, places. Do you know how many plants are opening all over the place? You don't talk, you don't shout, but you assume that nothing is happening. And please, if you're a Yoruba person, it's not an opportunity to tell you that there is a lot of there are opportunities in Yoruba land, the west and southwest. In Yoruba land generally, there are many opportunities. And pray, do your what's the word now? Research, and please invest. Somebody actually put out a statement, says that why do they dislike the progress happening in Abia State? What is the problem? Okay, of course, an Igbo guy. And that same person had posted something, you know, a while back. It says this is not about the accident. I want CNN or other top international media houses to take a tour of Ogun State and see the condition of the roads in every local government area. And then another guy says they will come for you as if the roads is not what they will also enjoy when fixed. Meanwhile, I want to play you something, one road in Abia State that they would never talk about. Again, they should fix the road they have to fix in Southwest. But there are certain places, there are certain people, considering where you come from, just keep quiet.
Oti, Abia State. The information is coming from one particular channel that is called Doom Television. That's DOME Television. You can search it up in the internet. It's there. That's on YouTube. And the video is there. It was posted about 30 hours ago. That's when the video surfaced. You can see, there are so many comments attached to this road. People are saying substandard work. So it's not only Soludo that is doing substandard work, that Otis own is even worse. A lot of comments concerning this road that was washed away. But honestly, I am going to release the video so that you can hear what the person that took the video, what he was saying about this particular place. Also, I need to let you know that he did not mention the particular place in Abia State, but the person mentioned that it is in Abia State, and from what they are saying, that is in Abia State, that the road is still under construction. And the poster on the YouTube said it is being done by Governor Alex Oti. So let me allow you to watch this video, and another thing follows it. Why I insisted on uploading this video is that during the time of the one that was washed away in Onitsha, it went viral, and this one is not being viral like that one. So let's know and understand, where our issue is coming from, and let the people in authority also understand where the problem and issue is coming from. Okay, that is the purpose of posting this video. Thank you. Just have a watch on it. Then you can drop your comment when you are done watching. Thank you.
This is another wahala. The second day of the rain. We have seen another thing. This is people gathering everywhere. This is the second day. We reported this the first day. Another one has happened today. Look at the main road. Look at the main road. Look at people's property. The water entered inside this place, inside this shop now. Look at it. Look at it. Even this yard, that's where people are coming inside. Look at it. Anya report wala. Look at it. Look at it.
So what's happening essentially is that they supposedly built a road that has now been washed away. It's like the sins of the past. Washed away. So the only thing standing here is drainage, but even that one is filled with sand. Everything around it is has been washed away. Good governance. Hey, how? It is well. The second part of that video, I guess, or is it another video? By the way, this is not to bash any governor, just to try to tell those governors as well that there are some things they should fix. E.g., there's a road that I think the governor of Abia said should quickly fix in order to give his people good governance, benefits of good governance. This is one of those roads. This is somebody that was there on 23rd March 2026, just a few days ago, after 30 minutes of rainfall. The place looks like Sea of Galilee, but take a listen to this.
This is Jubilee Road, today is 23rd of March 2026. No drainage, and that has been built well, very, very well.
There's not a build road without drainage citizens don't wash away. May God wash our sins away, and may God give our leaders the wisdom they need to build better. Alright, let's move away from that very quickly and visit Akwa Ibom. The Akwa Ibom state government has revamped and upgraded its own international airport. is Ẹkáàbọ state government. This is from AIT, the Victor Atta International Airport on track for international flight operations. That's Governor Eno. Take a listen to this.
With preparations intensifying for international operations, work is progressing steadily at the Victor Atta International Airport in Uyo, the Ẹkáàbọ state capital. Governor Omoeno, who inspected facilities at the new terminal, expressed satisfaction with the pace of development, noting that the state is aligning with regulatory requirements set by the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCCA. He explained that his administration is focused on ensuring that all critical components required for international certification are fully in place before operations commence.
There are gaps that we keep identifying, and we're closing the gaps. We have lead time issues from manufacturers, and we're trying to ensure that we fast track that. Don't also forget that some of these equipments are coming in from outside the country. There are a few delays due to several things.
While commending contractors for the level of progress recorded, the governor acknowledged that a few gaps remain and are being addressed with urgency to fast-track completion.
To open an airport, we need all of the details, and that's what we're doing now. And I think we're moving, as you can see for yourself.
Governor Eno also noted that some delays to the importation of specialized equipment, but has confidence that these challenges will not be the overall line. He further called on the managing director of Ibom Air, to leverage his expertise and support the realization of the state's vision of transforming the airport into a regional aviation hub.
And 10 days. We have also appealed to the MD of Ibom Air, who has very, very huge experience in opening and running airports internationally and nationally, to also work with the team, the airport manager, the DMO, and our team on the ground. So generally, I think we're good.
As efforts intensify, stakeholders say the successful takeoff of international flights at the Victor Atta International Airport is expected to boost connectivity, trade, and economic growth in Ẹkáàbọ State. Idonset Ikono, AIT News, Uyo.
I love that. You know, the most beautiful part of this video is the name the guy called himself, Idongesit. Oh boy, you be named sweet. Idongesit, Idongenye, Inemesit. I said, you know, I like that place. I remember I had this kid in my class, some of my children. I said, what's your name? So my name is, I think her name was Comfort or something. Her name was Blessing. So I was like, what's the name in your language? I think Comfort is, it has to be, Blessing is Idongenye. So I was like, call yourself Idongenye. Idongenye is fine. Why you call yourself Blessing? Idongenye sounds nice. Idongesit. I like your names, so that's why I'm pausing for whatever reason, just to appreciate whoever came up with, or whatever, however the language evolved to be. Very nice language. Anyway, that's a state government revamping an airport. Do you know how this whole thing started in Ẹkáàbọ, by the way? There used to be AKTA, right? Then it began AKTC. AKTC is Ẹkáàbọ Transportation Company, or Transport Company, Ẹkáàbọ Transport Company. So back in the day, if we're going back home, we would go there and then they will take us. Then they graduated from there, and now they have an airport, and then they have Ibom Air. That's growth. That's progress. and I think it's something that others should also emulate. It's quite interesting that we're not going to shout about this, we're going to shout about Julius Berger logo. Okay. Anyway, while they're building that fantastic stuff in Akwa Ibom, the governors of the Southwest are doing something very, very brilliant. And they're doing that under the aegis of Odua Investment Company Limited. I'm trying to find you that news report. Give me a second. Yes. The Odua Investment Company Limited, that's OICL, has acquired a 10% minority equity stake in FCMB Pensions Limited, a subsidiary of FCMB Group PLC. This strategic acquisition, approved by regulators including PENCOM and the CBN, enables Odua to expand its portfolio in the Nigerian financial services sector, specifically within the fast-growing pension industry. By the way, we don't know, excuse me, just in case you don't know, Odua Investment Company Limited is owned by the states, all the states in the Southwest, the 6 states: Oyo, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, Ekiti, and Lagos states. Those 6 states own that. That's from that regional mindset. All the companies that were under the Western region, they still hold those companies. Of course, they've sold some, but yes, FCMB Otumba Shubowin Balogun, but this is actually FCMB Pensions Limited. So FCMB aside the pensions company, and Odua Investment Company has a 10%. They acquired a 10% minority stake in the FCMB Pensions Limited. That's something really. As we wrap up now, I'm going to just share this news item with you, or a couple of news items actually. This one has to do with the Hausa people. Now, before we go to Hausa, let me tell you one nice stuff coming out of Abia State. I think I saved it somewhere here. Oh dear. You know this whole electricity thing they're saying in Abia State? Of course, a lot of people are saying Governor Oti is the one doing it. It's not true. Tell the truth and let the devil be ashamed. He's not, but at least he's a governor, and you know, if something good is happening in his enclave, he can take some praise for that. I'm trying to find you that video because it's good news. May not be like, I don't find them. This is from the cable. And this from Governor Alex Oti. Our vision on electricity is to detach Abia from the national grid. My commissioner for power is currently in the Netherlands negotiating. Take a listen to Governor Alex. Is it Alex Oti? Take a listen, please.
Electricity. So my honorable commissioner for power and public utilities is in the Netherlands negotiating that. Even though it's a private enterprise, but then we are interested to support them to grow because it is all for us. So if we have another 125 megawatts, we'll just wait it straight home wire and detach the entire state from the national grid. That's our vision.
That's a brilliant vision. If you want to detach Abia State from the national grid, that's actually a brilliant thing to do, and something that all of us should be thinking of. Ashwaju had that plan when he was governor for Lagos State, although there was pushback from the federal government at the time with President Olusegun Obasanjo, which is just unfortunate. But I mean, if they can do this in Abia State and other states can do it, and that means that we can solve the problems of electricity in Nigeria. So that's good stuff. All right, that said, let's go to the north. But before we do that, if you're on YouTube, thank you for joining us. Ẹkáàbọ. Please let's like the live on YouTube. Can you like? And you can also power tap on the screen. Just repeatedly tap on the screen. Just tap on it repeatedly. That way you're also helping the live, so others will know that, I mean, the algorithm, right, to be able to recommend the live stream to other people. We're going to get to the topic very soon, I promise. We just want to finish with the news reports. This one is from Hausa Indigenous Movement. and they are making it very clear that Hausa and Fulani people are different, and it's taken a while, but again, anytime you wake up is your morning. This was on Channels TV on Sunrise Daily, and they had this interesting exchange. Please take a listen.
Actually, we wanted the relationship to keep going, but because of the marginalization that we are seeing against our race, that is why we say we have to speak up. And the talk of saying that Hausa people have intermarried with Fulani, that is why they are now one. No, we are not one. We wanted to be one, but because they are segregating us, so we are no longer one actually. Because if we are one, Hausa people too supposed to be seen occupying political position. So it is because to them we are not one. That is why they are not allowing us to even let me take for instance in kind of my states. You cannot see you can hardly see a government official that is a political appointee that is Hausa. There are Hausas, but they are very, very few. And so with that equity, we need equity, you know, so that our power will be the same. But when maybe in this crisis of let me call it Hausa genocide, because those people are the ones that have upper hands. They have upper hands over us. So they are actually they are unaliving us so much, as if there is nobody that will come and talk for Hausa people. And all these things that is happening, there is no single person from the north, from all my state that say, oh, this thing is happening to Hausa people. Let us come out and help Hausa people. What some of them are even saying is that people are being treated. But if there is Hausa man that is of a higher political position, he will come and say that no, it is my people that are being affected the most.
All right, so let me ask you.
But what he talked.
Everybody just ask for your own space for this country, and this conversation, I think it's been centuries in the making, and I believe it's better late than never. And I hope that, you know, they would have the conversation that would essentially help them achieve their goals in the northern part of Nigeria. And speaking of the north, one second, bro. And speaking of the north, I want to talk to you about one Hausa man who visited the president. So that's our Hausa man saying, you know, they need to, you know, make progress. I watched the entire interview yesterday. What he was saying was angry that they don't have representation. And by the way, this goes back to what Awolowo was fighting in 1959. It's a feudal structure, and there is a way it's structured essentially. And at the top of the totem pole, you have a particular ethnicity, okay, and then the rest can occupy different rungs of the ladder. And if fortune smiles on you, or the powers that be smile on you, then you can, you know, be able to ascend. And but I mean, I hope that the Hausas actually, you know, Hausa man that I know has a very good deal is Dangote. And recently he was at Astro Rock to visit with the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it was actually quite nice. I think it's important to share with you what he said to the press after that meeting. Take a listen, please.
Well, I just came to see His Excellency Mr. President to just wish him Eid Mubarak, and also ask after himself. I haven't seen him for a while, and you know, wish him all the very best and pay my respect. That's what the visit is all about.
He just returned from the UK, and the world saw how he was received in that country. And part of what he said he had to do then was to open the ways for business investors across borders. So how do you think that will help you as a big investor in Africa and in the world?
Well, I think it has opened ways. Today diplomacy without the economic part of it is not complete. So I believe his own visit will open quite a lot of doors, and you can see the agreement that was signed, for actually improving our infrastructure, especially in the ports and other areas, which is almost 746 million pounds. That's quite a lot. It has not been, it's not that easy dealing with British, getting this kind of money out of them. They too, they are struggling on their own. But I think this to show confidence is not about the money, it's about the confidence in Nigeria. So the moment that they do that, there will be other countries that will follow suit. So it's not the 746 million. We too can do that to any other country and invest. But I think it is something to show an appreciation of Mr. President's, good work, the infrastructure he has been building. This will help and complement. But there will be other countries that will do. Germany will come, so they will line up and start coming now.
All right, sir. This is supposed to be a win-win situation. So how do you think Nigerian investors should make the best out of this?
Well, for Nigerian investor, it has shown that we can also go to the same agency and tap the resources. It means that the agency now is open for business for Nigerians. And we will go as infrastructure, as private people, to go and look for them to give us support. It's a credit agency, which we haven't really tapped those resources for a very long time. So I think with what has happened now, it shows that there is capacity for them to fund some of our projects.
So we're having a situation from part of the world, volatility in the oil sector, and the effect on Nigeria and other parts of the world. What does this mean, really?
Well, it means quite a lot. We don't have much to do with it, but the world is a global village, and it definitely will affect us, unfortunately, but we pray this situation will be sorted out. End up paying, big prices. Like what I said earlier on to CNN. If you look at it today, Africa is very busy paying debt, and putting this again on top of us is going to add a lot of hardship on people, on the governments, on the people, on everybody. For something that we have no really any involvement in it. If you look at it now, when you talk about energy affects almost everything. And it's not only energy. Some people will try and take a chance and say, this is an opportunity, so let me make money. So if this thing doesn't de-escalate, it is going to keep going up and up and up. And governments cannot really now go and add salaries also. So people will really, really feel the hinge. People who are now doing, barbers, people who are doing bread, people who have industries, who have to pay their own generator. You can see in some countries today what they've done, they ask everybody to work from home because they cannot, I think Indonesia also, they say no, only go to work 4 days a week, and they will look at the situation. If it doesn't improve, they will ask everybody not to go to work anymore. We will do like that time of COVID, where people will now go and work from home. So I pray, and we all need to pray that this thing de-escalates. If it doesn't de-escalate, normally we in Africa, we don't have any reserves in terms of saving, or in terms of this. And so people normally go out and look for money for the next day or for the even same day, some of them. If they don't work that day, they won't eat. So I think really we just need all hands on deck to pray that this thing comes to an end.
All All right. Someone mentioned earlier if Dangote was Fulani. No, Dangote is not Fulani. Dangote is Hausa. Okay. I hope I answered your question. But you can also, check it out. He is Hausa. His grandfather, Alassane Dantata, was also Hausa. But that's his maternal grandfather, so he's Hausa, left and right. But we also have many tribes. There are also many Hausa tribes. The same way Yoruba people have Ijebu and Oyo and Oko and so on and so forth. Hausas also have tribes within the Hausa ethnicity. But he's Hausa. That's about that. And I hope that we get out of this conundrum. But to be honest, there's very little you expect Dangote to do about this whole oil and petrol thing. It's mostly out of his hands. We don't know what to say about that, to be honest, except to say that hopefully the CNG buses that the government is rolling out, the CNG kits the government is rolling out, be available to more people, and so the common man who depends on buses for the transportation will be able to at least breathe a sigh of relief, because that would crash the price of transportation essentially. And for those of us who are in private spaces, may God bless us. That's the only thing I can say. May God bless you. May God give you new ideas that you can scale and make more money than whatever is happening in the world, because there's nobody to blame. And I find it very funny when people blame Tinubu for the rising cost of petrol. What are you going to blame him about? But of course, there's something that he mentioned that I think the government should probably work on, having reserves. We don't spend all our oil, even the one way they produce now, most of it they pay back the money we borrow. You get us for this country. May God help our leaders in Nigeria work, and may there be peace in the Middle East. By the way, is it not quite funny that since we're kids, we've been praying for peace in the Middle East? It's crazy. And whatever is happening there is affecting all of us right now. It's crazy. All right, let's move on to other things. I'm just going to read some of the comments, and I'll bring a couple of people up. Adewale Megabi on YouTube says, when was the interview? Because I would like to watch this whole clip. I don't know the interview you're talking about. If it's about Dangote, I think it was yesterday. 1 second, let me just check for you. No, it was on the 23rd. It was on the 23rd of March. Today is 27th, right? Yeah, it was on the 23rd. So if you want to look for it, you can. That was on Channel TV, by the way. All right, let's bring some people up. We'll have some conversations and we'll move on from there. Mufasa says, Prof, from 1.6 million BPD, where we want to see reserve. Nigeria does not even supply everything that Dangote needs to be able to run his refinery. He has a 650,000 barrels per day capacity, but much of it is actually imported. Much of the crude oil that he requires, I think Nigeria gets him like 30 to 35% thereabout. I watched an interview with David Bird, the CEO of Dangote, the other day, and it's something around 30% that he's able to get from Nigeria. And the only good thing about that arrangement is the fact that he's not paying dollars, but he's still paying the dollar equivalent in naira for the crude that he buys, in Nigeria. And then they go abroad. This is the crazy part from what I heard from the MD, the CEO of Dangote Refinery, that they go abroad to buy Nigerian crude at a much higher price, because of course Nigeria sold it to some people who will now sell it, of course it's business, and then they will now buy and then return to refine. It's going to get better. I mean, nobody will collect base, but we have to still pay the base. All right, Mr. Dewale on YouTube, you may want to be specific with your question. So when you say no Dangote, I don't know what you're talking about. The outside interview. Oh, okay. That was yesterday. It was on Channel TV. There's a lot of clips. I don't want to go deep into it. Maybe another time we can actually discuss it, or we're discussing what happened in the north, and I don't want to get into that because I want to end the news so we can get to the topic. But let me just quickly say that The video that I played earlier about the Hausa guy is from Channel TV, and the interview was yesterday. And to be honest, it actually proves Awolowo's point. If you read the book by Papa, the book is called Adventures in Power Book 2, The Adventures of Democracy. Adventures in Power Book 2, The Travails of Democracy and the Rule of Law. He mentioned why he went to the North. And he went to the North because of what is happening in 2026. For about a century before Papa went to the North in 1959, the Hausas had been subjugated in the northern region. And we know why. It was started with Usman Danfodio. And that's why I'm always talking to Yoruba people who are also, sometimes we get carried away with religion. The cover was religion, but the essence was ethnic. Okay, the essence of the takeover was ethnic, and that's why by the time they started, lifting people up, it was more of a particular ethnicity. But they were very bright. Like I said, Fulani, to be honest, like them or hate them, they're very strategic. They would lose. Many of them lost their own language, took Hausa as their own language. I mean, the former President Muhammadu Buhari, it's been said that he couldn't speak a word of Ofude, but he could, and he wasn't a young man when he passed on. So imagine not being able to speak. So the point is, they were able to. They had this thing where they knew what to let go of and what to hold on to, and the things they held on to were very, very symbolic, not just for them, but for the people they were leading. I think people use them as one for you. I don't like how they look over the place, but I think it was very bright in the way they structured the place, such that by the time the British arrived, Nigeria eventually transferred the ownership very clearly done, so people knew exactly where their place is in life. And you were either a self-aid or an aristocrat, a noble. And what I would always try to do in 1959, and I don't want to get into it, and I'm already getting into it, now I'm going to read the book. But what he was trying to get into, and I want to read the statement he made. I watched the guys during the interview, and I felt very bad for him because you shouldn't be fighting for that kind of thing in 2026, but about Dangote's ethnicity. Trust me, I had to check before I spoke. I want to be careful with this statement. One second, I want to find a book and read you something from the things that the AG set out to do was to destroy the very basis of this feudal concept. In fact, let me go back just a bit. In the normal course of things, no one had dared or would even have been tolerated to dare to challenge the leadership and behest of the Sardauna. In his realm, his word was law. It was his place and birthright to govern and command, and it was the bounden duty of the common people within that realm to submit and obey, whatever the object, nature, and character of his rule and command. One of the things that the AG, that's the action group, set out to do was to destroy the very basis of this feudal concept. The AG made the point repeatedly that sovereignty over the people was vested in the people themselves, that no one was born to rule, and that only those who were freely elected by the people were entitled to administer their affairs for a prescribed period of time. You see, once you move that feudal concept, then it becomes an open field for people of different ethnicities, particularly the Hausas. And you need to know what happened to the Hausas before the British came and after they came. The Fulani did a very fine job taking over that place. Whether it was good or bad, we can discuss that, but I think it's quite instructive the way they're able to create a structure in society. Which is why I tell folks when they're talking about Sharia, something from the north, you are having a religious conversation, but in reality, it's an ethnic conversation. It's an identity conversation. You've got to be smart. Again, Danfodio was very smart. I hope people are smart these days. All right, let's bring some people up so I don't get into that conversation. We'll have that conversation at the end of the day. Your mind says Buhari's Fufude linguistic was imparted by his protracted sickness while in office. What are you saying? I said I cannot speak his language. It's because why he's in office. When he was growing up, no, it has nothing while he was in office, he could not speak his own language. Buhari could not. And it didn't matter to them. Why? Because they were creating, those guys were brilliant. They were creating a hybrid identity, which is why I'm always speaking against Lagos Igbo, Kinikon Igbo. I speak against it because in history it has happened before. Hausa Fulani is a political concept. And like I said, I like to acknowledge when I like to acknowledge brilliance. It's a brilliant move. Hausa Fulani, it's a brilliant move. If you really think about it, the Hausa constitute about 6% of Nigeria's population. 6. Maybe they've increased now, but last time I checked was about 6%. The Hausa are much more than the Fulani. Did I say Hausa? I mean, the Fulani considered about 6% of Nigeria's population. The Hausa were a lot more. Although we don't have correct census figures, but they are not small. They are way more than, they're larger than, they have bigger, higher numbers than the Fulani. But like I always say, if you just cast your mind back to when you were serving NYSC, remember those 21 days in camp? Remember how many of you were wearing white on white all over the place? It were thousands. How many soldiers do you have in the camp? It's the same thing. It's psychology. And they were good at it. We'll talk about that some other time. Let's bring some people up so we can have other voices contribute to this conversation. Bumblebee Oludare Adeglo, thank you very much. Please come up. Please mute us once you get up, and then we'll call on you to make your submission. Thank you very much. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, please like and share. Please mute as soon as you get up. Please mute. Please mute. All right. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're on Facebook, kindly like and share. Share as well if you're on YouTube. And please, on YouTube, all you have to do is just back on your screen. If you don't like, can be that. In case you know what that looks, I'm sure you know what that looks like. It's not that hard. It's just tap on it twice. I can do it as many times as possible because that way it helps with the engagement. All right, thank you very much. All right, we have a couple of people up on stage who will have their submissions now. Good evening, Bumblebee.
Good evening, my favorite prof.
Welcome, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So, yes, first of all, I just want to send a note of gratitude to you for all the teachings you give us here. You know, some days I'm not always able to maybe make contribution, maybe because I'm busy with work, but I'll just be there listening in the background and everything. So, I think, what did the Bible say? The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. The Bible also says that the labor of a foolish man wearies him because he knows not the way to the market. A lot of problems we have in Nigeria is because we sometimes treat the symptoms of the problem rather than addressing the root cause. And if you have anyone who has understanding of medical practice, somebody can have headache. When you have headache, they will say, okay, what's the cause of your headache? Is it malaria? Or maybe a person has headache as a function of symptoms of maybe cancer. So if you're treating headache with the intent that you're treating malaria, is different from maybe the person has headache maybe as an offshoot of something more serious. So you don't just want to carry paracetamol and give the person a malaria drugs and everything. You want to know why is this person having this. So the problems in Nigeria we have today, there is a root cause. Everything we see is a symptom of the underlying condition, which is a very, very deep-rooted sickness. I just had a very lengthy 2.5-hour conversation with somebody. The person was like, Otedola, bashing him because he's riding bicycle in one country. I'm like, okay, why are we doing that? Why are people doing that? What does Otedola have to do with the price of bread in Nigeria? Is it that you don't like the person because he's rich? And let's be careful. If you have problems, be careful where to direct your grievances to. This is a guy that is just living his life, doing business. He's not in government. He's not directly responsible for anything in government. So why are you angry with him? So if you have the habit of hating rich people or hating successful people, you can't attract success. And every time you have a problem, don't think the rich people or successful people in the society are the cause of your problem. Now I said that to say, the person was still arguing, and I said, okay, calm down. I said the problems, the problems we have in Nigeria, there's a root cause to it. And some of the root causes is because of the political ideology of people. You know, so now, thank God for the teachings you've been giving us. I now started basically giving a breakdown of everything that happened from, you know, the amalgamation in 1914, how the North was not economically viable and the South was economically viable, how we went from that, and then you had Nigerians involved in trying to get into politics like Macaulay, all the way down to when we were pushing Awo and the rest were pushing for independence of Nigeria, you know, talking about it both locally and abroad and everything. And one of the considerations for them giving us independence was the viability of the Southwest and how they were able to show that they could perform. Now, I said that to say, when Nigerians are talking about bad leadership and everything, don't say that about your own leaders, because we have leaders that were actually good. And it's the condition of Nigeria that has put us where we are. I also now went and told the person, this was what Awo did, this was how Awo did, this was how the British helped the North rig census to tilt the leadership power in their direction, and how everything has basically spiraled from that time to this time, and how the story of the Southwest was the story of every other part of Nigeria. We had the first TV station, we had the first high-rise building in sub-Saharan Africa. We have basically had commodity control boards that were able to regulate prices. So today, the things we are experiencing today were things that we were shielded from because there was no unitary government. And when we had 1960s, when we had the military coup in the 1960s, of course, orchestrated by people from a particular part of the country, how that stopped us from being able to manage our own region of the country, and how there was declaration of a unitary government, and how the North did a counter coup and everything. And I said, when you now look at all these things, if you don't look at all these things, it's so easy for you to say, yada, 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 yada. I said, look, Tinubu is doing a lot. He said, don't support anybody, you don't have any. I said, look, the man is trying to subtly restructure the country from the tax policies to this, to that, to that, to that, to definitely the regional commissions, so that, and also giving funds to the local government so that everybody can develop at that pace. You cannot overtly create a regional system of administration, but what they are doing now is the closest thing to it. So you need to know that progress is happening, and after giving the breakdown, the person now calm down and say, and the person also a Yoruba person. So I said to say that I listen to this because not just also for educating myself, knowing where we are. We won't know where we are going to. If you don't know where you are coming from, you won't know where you're going to, and you know how far you have come. You also won't know whether the cup is half full or half empty. So I'll just say thank you very much, Prof. And let me leave my submission there.
That was a brilliant submission. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. That was really good. Fantastic. Thank you. I should clap for you, Zef, because I got some really good stuff. Thank you. Thank you. I like the way Timbo and Mobitanlo. We have to know where we're coming from, so where we're going. It's easy to say, oh, see, Nigeria, the problem with Nigeria is leadership, and it's not like that's not the problem. It's a major problem. But I like to say that the primary problem is structure. As one will say, and I know it's chicken and egg, like which one comes first, structure leaders? It's chicken and egg. Hopefully with the president that we have right now, and with what we're seeing with the structural changes that he's putting in place, whether it's with development commissions or with the conversations they're now having about state policing, hopefully we're going to get to the point where we actually have a proper structure for Nigeria, and then we can grow. It's beyond bad governors, bad leader. The person you call a good leader will get there and still mess it up. Why? Because the system is not structured in such a way that actually allows for growth. And so with what we are seeing with the president right now, we're looking forward to some serious restructuring of the nation. So thank you very much for that statement. I'm just going to read a couple of responses before we go to the next speaker. Whitey Kubo on YouTube. Good to see you. So this is what Whitey Kubo wrote. She says the British reinforced the Fulani hegemony because they needed their structures for indirect rule. For example, Yoruba Balogun Alanomo was Ilorin's ruler, yet British reinstalled the defeated emir. 100%. Thank you very much for that. I think that has to do with the stuff we're talking about, Fulani. Which also what they did in the north, they also tried to do it in the west. Well, Fulani, Ilorin is technically north, but it's still Yoruba land. And you see, when the British got to our space, they suddenly discovered that yes, we went to have a direct rule system, and they were certain that because we had kings, we would be able to give them exactly what the Fulani gave them. Well, they had a rude awakening that there was no absolute monarchy in Yoruba land, and there was no feudal system. We had kings, but they were not absolutists. So you had checks and balances. And then they stripped away all those checks and balances and became the checks and balances. So you didn't have the Ogboni, that was the judiciary, and the work of the cabinet essentially became yes men to whatever it is. They became yes men to whatever, to whoever was king. And so the king had so much power, much more power than he had, before the British got here. But yes, it's true what you wrote, that they did that in Ilorin because they preferred an emir, because the British did what they did for administrative convenience for the most part. Okay? So if you knew that working in the north with Sokoto, for instance, made work so easy for you as a colonialist, why on earth would you want to change the order? As a matter of fact, what they did was to replicate that structure in other parts of Nigeria. That's why they gave the Igbos warren chiefs. They didn't have those before the British, So, why would you have Alanomo when you can literally just bring in an emir? Somebody wrote here that, thank you, Mr. Bumblebee. Someone says here, some people have started, this is Koboko. He wrote, some people have started spreading fake news that it was British who gave us unitary system at independence. So one of the beautiful things about Nigeria's history is that it is documented. The real issue with Nigerian history is reading and studying, not documentation. That's why when I speak and people say things like, oh, there are no books on this matter, I'm like, how do you think I got the information? They are in books. When a person has to be very, very dull to make this statement and say that British gave us unitary system. How? They didn't. They gave us a federal system. It was not a perfect system. And by perfect, maybe we'll be having this conversation. Full session. The perfect system, and I listened to the video that people were sharing yesterday. I've listened to it before, of Lee Kuan Yew, and I've said it several times. In my own books, after Awolowo, the next person, as far as politics is concerned, is Lee Kuan Yew. That's my own. You don't have to agree, but that's my own belief. I think it's just brilliant. And I listened to what he was saying, and he was talking about the fact that Nigerians were not willing to become a nation. But there's a point he missed. At the time he was making that statement, they were still part of Malaysia. Malaysia pushed Singapore out in 1965, right? There was something that Singapore had that Nigeria did not have, Nigeria does not have, Nigeria will not have. And that is a majority ethnic group. Lee Kuan Yew is Chinese. Chinese constitute 75% of Singapore. That's a vast majority. It's easier to build that way. People don't understand the concept of how, and by the way, Lee Kuan Yew is also I'm going to play Lee Kuan Yew maybe next week. Maybe I should play Lee Kuan Yew, a video from Lee Kuan Yew. He also talked about the importance of ethnicity when he was comparing Singapore and India. how India cannot grow the way Singapore grew, because India does not have the advantage of a majority ethnicity, like at least not in the way that India doesn't have, just not in the way that Singapore has. But I should say this, that what Papa had, or what the Western region had from 52 to 59 when Awolowo was in charge was similar really to what Singapore had at the time. We had other ethnicities in Western region. There were Edos, there were Urobos, we had Isokos, we even had the Anioma. There was no Anioma at the time, to be honest. There was no Anioma until after 63, post 63, and it was an idea that was coined. By the way, I should say this, it was coined by Denso Sadebe, who was the premier of the region at the time. Anioma was not a word. It is still not a word if you really think about it. Apart from the fact that, yes, some people say in our language it means this, it means good land. Okay. But in reality, it was a political creation, okay? And it's an acronym. Anioma, A means Aniocha, N means Ndokwa, I means Ika, O is Oshimili. Then they added Ma, that's how they got Anioma. But what I was trying to say is that people from that area were also in Western region, okay? Whether they were the Ika, the Oshimili. And yes, there were Igbos there as well. There were Western Igbos who were also in Western region. But the majority was Yoruba. So it was it to push some things. Even though you had a very beautiful balance where you say have people like Anthony Nauro being one of the major voices in AG, even though it was not Yoruba, it was from Uromi, it was Esa. But they had a very good stuff. So that ethnic bit, we don't really pay attention to it as much, which takes me to what I really want to talk about. Our solution to Nigeria's issue, he actually wrote it in his first book, Path to Nigerian Freedom. I don't want to mention Dr. Badru, I don't want to mention Alfred Rouhani because Alfred Rouhani is a Shekiri. Excuse me. Alfred Rouhani is a Shekiri. And if I mention it, my Shekiri people might come in and say, why am I separating them from Yoruba? So I didn't want to do it. But to be fair, yes. Alfred Rouhani. And Alfred Rouhani was not just a big wig in the AG. He was also a big wig in the NDIC. The corporation that was in charge of the housing and everything, they started a business and they were making tons of money. And Rouhani was one of the major people there. Which takes me back to what I was saying. What you would call a perfect system in Papa's perspective or opinion is ethno-linguistic states or regions, whatever you want. So he said you could call them regions or states or provinces or whatever name you choose to call them, but the point is that the boundaries are demarcated based on ethno-linguistics. And you find it in his first book, Path to Nigerian Freedom, was published in 1947. And he also repeated, you know, the thought in a book down, and we've had sessions on it before. We'll talk about it some other time. But the point I'm trying to make is that back to the stuff you wrote in the comment section. It is ridiculous to say that the British gave us unitary system. They did not. They gave us a regional system. It was not perfect, right? But it wasn't unitary. What would have been perfect in Awolowo's perspective, which I also agree with at the time, by the way, is that you would have different ethnic groups, especially the big ones, having their own spaces, and then the smaller ones can be together and have something. So the smaller ones will look like what you have in Delta State, for instance. Okay, they can decide to be together, or in South, they can decide to be together, and then they decide how they will be together. But the big ones that had the numbers and they had viability at the time could actually constitute separate states within the nation. In other words, Yoruba is a state, right? And the reason is because, you see, Nigeria is not a nation, and I know I've said this several times, but it's important to repeat it. Nigeria is not a nation. Nigeria is a country of many nations. What make up nations? Nigeria doesn't have. We don't have a Nigerian culture. There's no Nigerian language. There's no Nigerian value system. We don't have anything Nigerian in that sense. Much of what we call in fact, most of what we call Nigerian culture is actually Yoruba culture, but we don't have a problem sharing, by the way. And that's why you notice that when they were doing BRICS and Nigeria was trying to get into it, and then they did this currency and used Hausa, everybody was angry because Hausa is a Nigerian language, not like the Nigerian language. We don't have the Nigerian language. We don't have Nigerian languages. So the point is, just own it. And I've said it several times, the best way to understand Nigeria, this has helped me a lot. I hope it helps you too. I think it will help you. The best way to understand Nigeria is not to see Nigeria as a nation. I understand Nigeria a lot better, or I started understanding Nigeria a lot better when I started looking at more ethnicities in Nigeria than in Europe. How on earth do you think you're going to run Nigeria like you run Germany? Different groups, different visions, different value systems, different cultures, different stuff. Can you be a nation? You cannot. Can you be one country that will grow? You can. So the country, becomes what brings all of us together, but we can do what we want to do in our own spaces without anybody feeling that they're fighting. And it's not new. They're doing it in Canada, they're doing it in Belgium, they're doing it in Switzerland, they're doing it in the UK. It's only in Africa that we are holding on to borders created by colonialists. And when you mentioned that it's only someone from outside that can make African nations nation, he's right. Why? Because we were not nations before the British came. They just came and said, you are now one. How now? It's not possible. You can't just declare that people are one. There's nothing. You have people whose cultures are like this. You have those whose cultures, and we are not the same. I mentioned something last week. People are maybe cursing me out on social media, on Twitter, Facebook. I don't care. Well, somebody wrote a message to me. Let me share it. It said, the British came, and I said to the person, listen, you can talk about your fathers being naked, and I was very angry. And I'm angry because certain people, because they are very low, they assume that where they are is where everybody is, and that's what will give us oneness as a nation. That's nonsense. Now your fathers may be walking the forest naked. It doesn't mean that everybody's father was swinging their stuff all over the place. That's your own story, and there's no problem with it. And I'm not using it to insult you, but that's your story. Don't transpose that story to me because of one Nigeria. 15th, 16th centuries, right? The Portuguese were buying clothes from the Ijebu, selling all the way to Brazil, taking all the way to, they take to Ghana, taking all the way to Brazil. That's not where clothing industry said in Yoruba land though. There's a report I was sharing on Facebook the other day that I think I should even put out something about it on one of these days. Archaeologists did some work in Ife, right? Published it last year. I have the findings here, but we're not going to change topic. And they found seeds, cotton seed, wheat seed, dated those seeds to 11th, 12th century AD, and said, you know what, I think I should read some of those things. I'm not going to have to read the entire book. I'm just going to read my responses on Facebook. So that's going to be, excuse me, so that Omali is smooth. When they saw they dated those seeds to that era or that period, and they said it suggests that there was a vibrant textile industry in Ife as at the 12th century. I'll see if I can find it for you guys. Good. I think I showed today. Oh, this is the one about Portuguese. Somebody was laughing. So the person asked me if Yoruba had clothes. And then I was actually being gracious. I was explaining stuff. I think I was talking to a clown. The person said, I want to ask you, did the Western Nigeria grow cotton a century ago? The Igbos were known to cover their parts with goat skins long before any kind of civilization. The East never grew cotton for textile. Actually, they did at some point, but details. But they covered their privates. The earliest people to access textile were the northern Nigerians. The Arabs brought that along. Until the Europeans came, even the West covered their privates scantily like everyone else. So I quoted a paper. The paper is called Early Archaeological Evidence of Wheat and Cotton from Medieval Ile-Ife, Nigeria. Archaeological excavations at Ile-Ife, Nigeria revealed charred cotton seeds dating back to the 11th to 13th centuries, providing early evidence of cotton cultivation and a likely textile industry in the medieval West African forest zone. Number 2, there is no historical record of your forebears wearing goat skin. You likely found that in your childhood book of Bible stories, but your parents were neither Esau nor Jacob. In reality, they prefer to let their things swing free before later adopting simple loincloths to cover their privates. Don't ask me what things meant. Number 3, the Yorubas have a fundamentally different history from yours. While the Europeans found your ancestors walking the forest naked, they were busy buying clothes from mine. Don't feel too bad about it. At least you have a shirt on your back today. God bless you. There's no story of evil people wearing goat skin. That's from Esau and Jacob in the book of a Bible story. That book of a Bible story. That's where people find goats. Goat called skin clothes. There's a goat skin called goated skin. So the clown now laughed, and I didn't like it. He said, "Ha ha ha ha! The Europeans were busy buying clothes from you, indeed. So when did you stop growing cotton?" So this was my response, and I'm going to now read this, and then I'll move on to other things. I said, "You may want to wipe that ignorant smirk off your face and research how the Ijebu were already selling Asholono to the Portuguese as far back as the 15th and 16th centuries. Historical records and museum artifacts confirm that these textiles were so highly valued that the Portuguese exported them as far as Brazil, where they were known as Pano de Cotton in Yoruba land. In fact, Governor Abiodun recently unveiled plans for a $2.5 billion cotton processing plant designed to process 1,000 tons of cotton daily and produce 4 million garments every single day. If you have any more questions, ask Google. You are not paying for all this information." Not to you, that was to him. All right, because I can't be wasting time on clowns. The point is that, and this is not to say I'm better than anybody, but we're not the same, essentially. So you have people who were naked, who had to be forced to wear clothes in 1963, and your fathers who have been selling clothes to people who have a textile industry for thousands of years before now, they are now the same because we are all in one Nigeria. Do you think you're going to think the same way? There's a video I saw. It's actually very shameful. There's a video I saw of people just walking with loincloths in 2026. 2026 from a particular part of Nigeria. When I put out this video, if I put out this video, I'll add that video. You'll see it. They had firewood on their heads. They had loincloths on their body. It's a recent video. Was it 2026 or during Christmas? One of the, I think it was 2026. It's a recent video. You really think you will think the same way as those people? This is not to say you are better than any. You're actually better. Let's even stop all this political correctness. You are better. Better in the sense that you are more aware, you have seen, you have a different perspective of life. But because we're all in one country, everybody says, "Oh, let's be united." What are you talking about? You can't even unite in your own region. You have social stratification, saying one is better than the other. How do you think you're going to do that in Nigeria? Especially when you are at the lower rungs of the ladder. It's crazy. So, in order to have a beautiful nation beautiful country, I should say, called Nigeria, what you do is this: think of it like Europe. Let Germany do their own. Let Austria do what they want to do. Let Switzerland do what they want to do. Let Greece do what they want to do. We are all together in one nation. I keep using that word because they've taught us since we're kids. But we're not in one nation. We're all in one country. Nations require commonalities, shared history, shared culture, common ancestry in many cases, right? Language. We don't have those things in Nigeria. Does that mean Nigeria cannot work? No. It just means that Nigeria cannot work the way people are expecting it to work. You can spend the next 1,000 years, it will not work. Why? It doesn't follow the natural order. The natural order is that people will gravitate towards what is theirs. And those who tell you be detribalized are lying to you. At home, they hold on to what is theirs. And it's natural and it's not wrong. So what do you do as a person? You key into that thing as a country. You key into the natural tendencies of human beings. You key into it and create a structure that actually allows them to be who they are, not to force them. And the only way you can force them, by the way, you need two things to be able to force people to do anything contrary to what I've said so far. If you hate what I've said, you need only two things. Number one, have an ethnicity that has a huge majority. Like the Chinese in Singapore, 75%. There are three ethnic groups in Singapore. There's the Chinese, the Indians, and the Malays. The Chinese have 75. And so, and when you mentioned it, some of the things they do in Singapore is based on Confucian ideology or Confucian philosophy. But they're 75%, so it makes sense. You have the Malays about 15-18%, then you have the Indians, and then you have others who are not indigenous to the space. Or you do like China, and that one is in two ways. Number one, you conquer. That's the only, you conquer or you become like Singapore. And China also did it. Today, China is a very vast country. It has about 56 ethnicities, but only one ethnic group is 92%. The remaining are sharing 8%. Only one, the Han Chinese. The growth of the Han identity, conquest was part of it. Who is going to conquer who in 2025 now? Or 2026? Who's going to conquer who in Yoruba, in Nigeria? Unless you want to be conquered by Yoruba people, if you don't mind. Like, if you notice, we've been sharing our culture, we don't mind, we don't mind. So you share culture with people. But you have only one other option. If you want to grow, you will organize yourself according to ethnic identities. But you be one nation. And how do I know that that's the only way to do stuff? Go back to where we started from. Showore criticized Alex Oti and said he went to Area market, which I have been to, by the way. He went to Area market. The road was good, but the market looked like Jurassic Park. Igbos came out for him and use words like, don't talk about our best. You are not an Igbo man. Once they start speaking, you understand the fact that it is human. We are the ones who always, like to act like we're sophisticated. We are beyond, I'm not going to follow my people just because I don't want to be tribalistic. Let us insult someone together. Something is wrong with some of us. They just switched to, you can't talk about him because you are not Igbo and he's our best. Do I have a problem with what they've done? No, that's the truth. I don't. Why? That's nature. They they want you to fight it, but they allow it in their space. The girl who sent the message to the one we listened to, Amunike, what did she say? Why are you criticizing Alex Oti? You are from Imo State. He is not your brother. That's what we heard. They understand clannishness. Only one clannish. They come and be talking to you about one Africa. So what should you do? Allow people be humans. Stop shouting, we are united. You have been shouting, this is 2026. I don't know about you. For kids, the same way we talk to them about tooth fairies, right? We can talk about tooth fairy, talk about Santa Claus. It's the same thing. It's the same way we're doing in one Nigeria alone. So you can talk to your children about tooth fairies and Santa Claus and Nigeria, but as you begin to grow old, you know that tooth fairy did not drop any coin under your pillow. Remove the tooth. You know that there was no Santa Claus. You are the ones who have been buying gifts and put under those trees for your children. How come you are still thinking like a baby when it comes to national structure or national conversations? oh, we are one Nigeria. Where? Do I believe in one Nigeria? Yes. Is it the same thing as what you believe in? Maybe not. I don't believe in this thing where you erase people's identities because you want to make other people comfortable. And that's what everybody's talking right now. And the crazy part is that what I'm saying right now, some retarded people will say is bigotry, but they are the ones that will say don't talk about our people because you're not from our place, you're not our ethnicity, you're not kiniko. And Yoruba people, we tend to want to allow those nonsense. Let's be one. I don't know. I have a lot of Yoruba people sending me those stupid messages, and I'm not saying you are stupid, but you are probably stupid because considering the fact that you're not producing rubbish messages, you are writing from. It's a mix of emotions and ignorance. It's amazing. It's an amazing mix. You are emotionally charged and you are ignorantly pushing it out. Like you don't know what you are talking about. I love one Nigeria. I love every ethnicity. But I don't think we can stay like this. So if we don't want to grow, I don't think we can grow like this. But if you want to appear to be good, let's keep it. You can keep it for the next 100 years. You can, no problem. For 100, 200 years, you can be like this. Just be telling your children it go better. Every year it go better. They now come and be insulting. They will insult you. The same way you are insulting your father, they will curse you out. They want children to continue the story. I'm going to end with this thing. Something happened in Europe in the 15th. I'm not going to talk about it too much. 1 second. I want you to please read. I mean, you can just read. You don't have to read entire books. Just look for the words. It was in the 17th century. I want to be sure of the date. It wasn't 16th. It was 17th. It was in 1648. Please read something on the Westphalia Treaty. There are books on it, but you can just Google it. You don't have to go deep. See, what we call sovereign nations today was actually birthed in Europe. Before then, there were no nations in the sense that we use today. We just had kingdoms. Now, sovereign states, sovereign nations developed because people actually sat down in Europe and said, we're going to have to carve out something for ourselves. As a matter of fact, they even use religion in some instances. The Protestants want their own nation. The Catholics also were in a particular place. They did different reasons, different structures in different places, but they created something for themselves. I think Africans, rather than preaching all this ridiculous Pan-African joke that we're doing, by the way, I believe in one Africa as far as trading across the continent is concerned. Travel within Africa, it should be easy. All those things, I love it. But when it comes to identity, a person must be on crack to be thinking of one Africa, one language. I read one clown saying that a group of clowns actually, they're going to have one language and it's going to be Swahili call Swaziland. I'm good with my Yoruba. The point is this: Europe has less ethnicities than Nigeria. Nigeria is forming oneness. Now, when I say Europe has less ethnicities than Nigeria, now consider Europe and Africa. Europe understands the differences and created structures, not just to be shouting unity, but to also acknowledge differences. Africans who have more ethnicities than Europe, they are shouting, you are looking for one Africa. Rather than be having that conversation, Africans need to sit down and really think. You have thousands of ethnicities in your countries. You may not have to necessarily change the order and say you want to have 1,000 nations. It's not going to happen. Just chaos. But within those countries, you can restructure according to what you have naturally, rather than just following colonial boundaries and spending the rest of our lives just fighting unnecessary. People are moving to Yoruba land. Some people used to be maybe outcasts back at home will move into Yoruba land and tell you they want to determine your politics, and you can't speak because you are one Nigeria. Says who? I mean, back at home you can't talk because they will remind you that you're an outcast. They can't even allow you to speak in places that matter. But everybody is demanding governance in Yoruba land. I'm supposed to be keeping quiet. Awo said in his book, the one I quoted earlier, the one I referenced earlier, I think I should read that book. We've not gotten to this topic. It's quite interesting, but I'm answering a question in the comment section, and it might be a better use of our time. Let me find you that book. Mombo, I want to read you something from that book. By the way, I may not use tags of always, but I am born out. My father, wherever he is, I mean, I know where he is with God, is with his maker. When he was on earth, 100% Awo. Me, I'm even more than 100%. My children, like that too. So, if you have any problem with that, if you have a problem, that's a problem. But just enjoy the conversation we're having. I want to read something from that book, The Path to Nigerian Freedom. Again, it was published in 1947. Let me first read something about the North that we started earlier, then I'll go to what we're talking about. It says here, Southerners who go to the North to work, again, 1947. How many years? Next year, mark 80 years, Abby. Southerners who go to the North to work or trade have to be segregated, whereas Hausas are free to mix as much as they wish in the South. By the way, the reason they segregated them was because they didn't want them to mix with the locals up in the North, because if they mix with the locals in the North, in many instances they could just begin to tell them how things should be, and that could spark riots. He says the seed for a future minority problem in the North has been sown by the government. It will grow with growing political consciousness on the part of those who settle permanently in the North when the bitter harvest comes to be reaped, as surely it must unless the present policy is changed. The British government should bear the blame. We should cite other instances, some of them in fact unprintable, but enough has been said to show that there is a big rift between North and South, which the government itself is sedulously widening. If the present tendency is maintained, when the Hausas come to their own, they will surely demand a Pakistan like Jinnah's Muslims. If the coup of January 66 did not happen, Hausas would most likely have demanded their own region. How do I know that? Because even with the coup, excuse me, please power tap. This is showing activity on TikTok. I'm trying to drag the piece of a puzzle on TikTok. Good. Please power tap on TikTok. Thank you very much. And thanks for 101k likes. Let me clap for you guys. By the way, if you're on other platforms, there's a way it works on TikTok. People, we need all the help we can get. So let me appreciate us. Thank you. Where were we? Even with the coup that happened in January, by the time the counter coup happened July 66, what did the Hausas say they wanted? What did they say they want, rather? They said they wanted Araba. Split this country. They had had enough. Without the power that they got in 60, they would have broken the country. Even in 1950, they also wanted a separate nation. In 54, they wanted a separate nation. In 66, they wanted a separate nation. They used the secession to threaten everybody in 1950 when they demanded half of the parliament. And the Yoruba people did not care. I have the legislative conversations, the dialogues, the conversations they had in the legislative, in the legislature in 1950. It's right here. The Yorubas were represented by Oba Adesoja Aderemi, and he said in that meeting, "I'm going to have to go back home and talk to my people because this was not what we agreed on before we left home. We can't do this, so we give the North 50%. Even if you choose to do whatever you want to do, just know that the West doesn't agree." Guess who gave them 50%? The East. Guess who was the one speaking up? That's not what we're doing. But you know what? Since I mentioned it, don't worry. I know where we are. I'll come back to this. It's important because you are Yoruba, or you are doing stuff for the benefit of everybody. Some clowns will still come and insult you and your fathers because you are trying to prove that you are one Nigeria. Just ridiculous. I'll find you that stuff. I hope I find it quickly. That's the issue now, Sha, because I didn't plan for it, but I'll make it worth your while. Just give me a second. Sha. Oh boy. Now come up, I was already killing this. I don't waste your time. I found one. That was this is separatist agitations in Nigeria. That's by Tekena Tamuno. But that's not what we're looking for today. We'll come back to that later. Oh boy, I don't think it's here. It's here. Where is it? Anyway, I'll tell you stuff about it while I'm looking for it. I hope that's fine. So that way you can still, you won't just be looking at the screen. So I found something interesting, but I'm not going to read it. It's tempting, very tempting. So let me tell you what happened. The North, they wanted to change the structure of Nigeria, right? They were like, you know what, you guys, you are South, we are North. This, by the way, the South was broken in two in 1939. Okay, so we had Northern Protectorate, Southern Protectorate, and then they broke the South in two with the West and the East in 1939. By 1950, the North came up with something that is very weird. I keep seeing these documents, but that's not what I'm looking for. You know what, let me go to the other place. The North made an what's it called now? A demand that, I mean, is very weird. And the demand essentially is that they would have 50% of the seats in parliament, even though there were 3 regions. So the argument ensued that, listen, you can't have half of the seats when you are a third of the regions. And they had this, they were like, you know what, you guys, I found it. They said, you guys are you are the South, we are the North. So you have 50%, we also want 50%. I'm going to read to you what Kabisi said to them. I found it. This is called Nigeria Legislative Council Debates, 16th September 1950. Your fathers, as a Yoruba person, your fathers did well. Your fathers were great men. Oh, how about our own fathers? If you're not Yoruba, you can talk about your father. But as a Yoruba man, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Your fathers may not be perfect, nobody is, but they did their best, and the best you may think is not good enough, but I can assure you, heads and shoulders above their peers from wherever they came from in Nigeria. Let me show you what Kabiyesi said. This was 16th September 1950. Listen to the Ooni of Ife. The Honorable Sir Adesoji Aderemi, KBE CMG. Your Excellency, this is Kabiyesi. I feel I should make some remarks, and that is that I regard myself as a representative of the Western region. It should be remembered that the Western region has expressed the views in favor of 2 houses just as a way out of the deadlock we have reached. In doing so, the Western House of Assembly tried to follow the government's advice, which was given at Enugu, that the question of a second house should be considered in the various regions so that we may get over this trouble. I have made my position clear in the Select Committee that according to Yoruba custom, when a representative is sent by one assembly to another with a message that he cannot deal with, any issue newly arising from the discussion, he is bound to refer back home for instructions. On account of that, I cannot say that I agree with this decision, for I have no right to vary the decision of the House of Assembly which sent me. I realize that majority decision was responsible for all we have done on the revision of Constitution in the past. And I realize the fact that with all the Eastern members, with all the Eastern members supporting the North in its demand for 50% of the seats at the center, the table is turned and as usual, the decision that is reached by the majority would prevail. Nevertheless, as we of the East have not dared to vary the decision of our colleagues in the Western region, nevertheless, as we of the West have not dared to vary the decision of our colleagues in the Western region at the Select Committee, we still do not wish to vary it now. I just want to make that clear. 16th September 1950. If you see some lunatics on social media, and I saw some on the news, in fact, news yesterday, saying that the Yoruba people don't want the Hausas and the Igbos to work together because we have never worked together. I'm like, are you dumb? This is 1950. All of the Eastern regions supported the North to get 50% of the seats in Parliament, even though they were a third of the regions at the time. And Kabesi said, I know that the majority will have their way. You're going to do what you have to do. The East is already supporting the North. I just want to make it very clear that we are not going to be part of this, especially because that's not what we agreed to when we're coming from home. So we have to go back home first. Let me now read to you what the Eastern representative said. This was the same man who 5 years prior had made a statement in Lagos Island Club. And what he said caused the riot in the north that got his own people killed. What did he say? He said the Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a question of time. He said it in 45. And the reason he said it in 45 was because they had a meeting in 44 where they drew out a plan. I have read it here before. The Igbo National Caucus drew out a plan to do what? This way, their own words, to perpetually rule the country, to perpetually rule. He made that plan in 44, he spoke in 45. That was the reason for the riots in the north. Does not mean that I justify the killings of the people. I'm just trying to explain to you why things happen, not that what happened. What happened is good, but why did it happen? Why? So that if you know why it happened, you'll not repeat the mistakes. Anyway, Charles Oyema said what he said in 45. Let me read to you what he said in 1950. The first member for the Eastern Provinces, the Honorable C.D. Onyema. Your Excellency, this matter of representation of our central legislature has been a very difficult problem, which has puzzled the minds of many of us since the Ibadan conference. At Ibadan, I was very much against the idea of having one region represented in such great numbers as to balance the other two regions put together. But I have given the matter further thought. And the problem, as I see it now, is whether we propose to have one Nigeria or to have a break between the North and the South. Unity none. Do we want to have one Nigeria? 1952 was 10 years before independence. They were using one Nigeria to gaslight their fathers. Say, because you're gaslighting yourselves. I'm sorry, I get pissed off when I read some of these things. Like, you're like, we didn't get here by accident. We didn't just appear here. People did stuff. Nigeria is the problem. Our leaders are the problem. You don't know your... It is well. Let's stop there. Let me continue reading. Your Excellency, this matter of representation of our central legislature has been a very difficult problem, which has puzzled the minds of many of us since the Ibadan conference. At Ibadan, I was very much against the idea of having one region represented in such great numbers as to balance the other two regions put together. But I have given the matter further thought, and the problem as I see it now is whether we propose to have one Nigeria or to have a break between the North and the South. If we all agree, as we appear to have done, that we must have one Nigeria, then we must then consider that consider what sacrifices we have to maintain that unity. In its own unity, you eventually fought a civil war 7 years after this mistake. But let's read. I think that any student of history will remember that the United States had to fight a civil war in order to maintain its own unity. By the way, Nigerian story is not American story. American story is the story of one ethnicity fighting among themselves. People don't get it, but it's important to say it. America is one group fighting amongst themselves. You see many states, but what's the core of the United States before the 13 colonies? What's the core? And even after 13 colonies, what's the core? Up until 1965, how did they maintain balance of ethnicities in America? The core is something called WASP. I'm not sure I'm going to get to this topic, but let's stay here for a bit. It's called WASP. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And that's why the United States will be 250 years this July. Okay? That's after the Revolutionary War, the one with England or Great Britain. 250 years since 1776. In those 250 years, you have not had 8 years of Catholic presidency in America. That's why when people say sinner climb. I'm like, this is human nature. It's not about white or black. It's the way people structure themselves. Catholics have not been present in America for up to 8 years since 1776. At the core of that structure is an identity that is white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. And many books have been written on this concept. I'm not making anything up. I can later I'll go on that book and read out to you 60s. Think about it, 1776, almost 200. That was the first Catholic president. And he did not finish his term. Then they waited though since 1960. Then recently we had Biden. That's all. You think you are saner than the so-called sinner climb? The core is Protestant. You can be shouting, oh, are they not the same? You understand? Everybody knows they're different. Oh, America is land of kings. Everybody can go in. The opening up you see in America now happened after 200 years of after almost 200 years of existence. Almost 200 years of existence. That was when they opened it. They opened the place up in 1965. Since 1776. You have not even created an identity for yourself, which you cannot, because you are just Jimmy in Nigeria, which is what the people were doing here in 1950. Just dreaming of a unity that doesn't exist. It didn't exist, it doesn't exist, and there's a reason for that. So you are doing all this, your drama. The people who who had the Declaration of Independence in 1776 made sure they stayed true to their stuff. When they started opening up gradually, what were they doing? Even when they soft pedaled on the Anglo-Saxon, they maintained white for centuries, for almost 2 centuries, for more than 1 century. They maintained white in terms of the folks who were coming in. And even amongst the whites, there were whites and there were whites. I mean, there were whites. Someone wrote about Irish. I mean, up until the 1920s, the Irish were not respected in the United States. They were not considered. I mean, you can do your own, go and verify. Some of the first set of people that broke the jinx were actually JFK's own father. You go to a place and say, there's vacancy, but no Irish. I think it was Irish, black, Jews, and dogs were not allowed. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that every society creates their own structure, not this assumed unity that we're always shouting in Nigeria. It doesn't make sense. Are we going to continue like this and our children will also take on it's not a dream, by the way, it's a nightmare. You just be complaining. You open radio, complain, TV, complain, video, complain, Nigeria, complain. Channel like this go a day. All of that to say that I'm going to finish that thought. They started opening up gradually, right? And when they did, they maintained white. Before 1776, it was white, Anglo-Saxons, and Protestants. I mean, we know from Mayflower, the primary reason for the creation of, so to speak, United States was for religious freedom. The Quakers and the rest of them are fleeing England, had moved on the Mayflower to the New World and created a settlement for themselves, and then it grew from there, and then other people started coming in. excuse me, and then much later you had different groups. The Dutch came and the Germans came and different people started coming. Then much later you had the Swedes and then you had the Norwegians and so on and so forth. But it was still white. America was 1965. Some of you are even older than me. You were born before then. And it was called the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, there were people going in there before 65. But when she we have not even settled the idea of identity. We're just shouting, "Sinner climb, sinner climb." We need to study the structure of. Let's go back to the document from 1950. I know we started from 1947. We're going to go back to that book later, but let's finish this thing in 1950. This is what C.D. Oyema said. I want to continue from where I stopped. He said, "I think that any student of history will remember that the United States had to fight a civil war in order to maintain its own unity." The question I was trying to answer there is that when you say United States was fighting a war to maintain its own unity, how was United States created? They decided to be together. They came up with their pursuit of happiness, all the things finding in the Declaration of Independence. It was their own. You didn't do anything like that now. You were brought together. I'm going to come back to this. I was having a chat with my kids, I think it was some days ago, over the weekend. No, it was some days ago. Maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, thereabout. And we're talking about why there are different spellings, between British English, and that they broke off from them and that they're no longer part of their colony. They're no longer their colony. America is petty. But when I think about it, I understand it. It's not even, I don't even think it's pettiness, but I think even if it's pettiness, it makes sense. They would not spell color like England does. They remove the U. Favor, color, honor, they remove all the U's. Why? They are trying to assert. Why do they use miles instead of kilometers? Why is American metric different from every other country in this world? They'll be talking Fahrenheit. I don't even know where that one started. Everybody uses Celsius. Why? They're trying to maintain identity. Like we are independent. We are still holding on to the tailcoats of the colonialist. Some people call them something else, but I prefer colonialist. Anyway, let's go back to the ones looking for unity in Nigeria. I think that any student of history will remember that the United States had to fight a civil war in order to maintain its own unity. If all the sacrifice we make in this country is to allow the northern region, which is also part of Nigeria, to have 50% representation and thereby achieve unity, I think we would have got away very lightly indeed. Charles Oyema, who is the first member for the Eastern Provinces, said that a third. Ejo, sorry, in the comment section, please. Madam Osun is mommy. So, Oloro for Concilium, let's please calm down. Ejo. Like, Balagban is not, she's not our Ejo. Thank you. Back to this. The Eastern region, and thank you for that, Dr. Badru. The Eastern region literally gave the North 50% of the parliament seats on a platter of gold. Whatever you see today, oh, Kano has so many local governments. Oh, the North has more seats in the parliament. It started in 1950, not in 2026. You're shouting, your leaders are bad, your leaders are bad. Maybe it's your own leaders. And while I'm not here to apportion blames, even though it will be bad, because the loudest people are the ones that should be taking responsibility. Anyway, the point is, while I'm not here to apportion blames, if we want to make progress, we have to go back. Bumblebee said it earlier. We have to know where we are coming from to know where we are going. Why did we give them 50%? So that we can unite. But they had another plan, by the way. The East actually had another plan. It was a very funny plan that did not work. And I think I should read it. He said it here too. Now, when the question of two houses came up for consideration, some member from the Eastern region thought that that was really not an answer to the problem. For one thing, we could not fulfill that's talking about bicameral legislature at the time. For one thing, no, Madam Osama, Emma worry. And Concilium, thank you very much for being a gentleman. Thank you. So back to this. So we're talking about having bicameral legislature. So you have the Senate and House of Representatives. That's what folks were saying at the time. So it says here, when the question of two houses came up for consideration, some member from the Eastern region thought that was really not an answer to the problem. For one thing, we could not exactly decide on the function of this upper house was going to fulfill. If it was going to be merely a house to delay legislation or to make the lower house think again, we thought it was dilatory and there was no point in delaying the legislation unduly, or in fact delaying the ordinary function of the Legislative Assembly. Furthermore, this is where I'm going. Furthermore, we thought that even if we gave the North 50% representation, we still had a Council of Ministers at the center, whose votes, as a matter of honor, are bound to be the same once they have reached a decision as regards government policy. They were banking on Council of Ministers. So they literally gave away parliament seats for Council of Ministers. Like, the short-sightedness is making myopic. Like, it's crazy. You are still suffering from it today. And what was he using over and over? Unity. But why was he saying that? Was it because he liked Nigeria? No. I'll read to you why he said that. And I've read it before. It's from Maji Param. And she wrote this October 1960. Was published in the Listener of 20th October 1960, and it says here, she wrote, beneath this difficult restraint, regional differences are great. I believe that the Igbo are the main force for unity. They need unity. This page answered a lot of questions I had as a young person. They need unity. Why? As the poorest region, they have had to pour out of their overcrowded forests to seek work all over the other regions. It's your Bible. Allah shall know. You welcome people because, as far as you're concerned, we're used to having strangers. We've been welcoming strangers for centuries. Your Bible, we've been welcoming strangers, traders. We're moving into Yoruba land. When I say centuries, I mean centuries. I mentioned earlier, if you read the book where the name Yoruba came from, that the Yoruba were trading with the Malians as at the 5th century AD. So between us and them, we've been trading. 5th century, this is 21st century, that's 1,600 years ago. So we're used to having people around. So you see another mindset in Nigeria, anybody can come. When they come and say, why not do it this way? Okay. You now begin to create a system where you begin to make things right for them, so that you can make them feel comfortable in your home because you know how to entertain strangers and guests and all of those fine things. Well, there's another part to it. Yorùbá ní a kì í bá ní tán. A kì í bá, excuse me. 1 second, please. All right. The Yoruba, they say akimbani tan, kafani tan ya. There's also need for boundaries. The person you are saying, oh, everybody come, let's change our laws, let's have a state of residency, let's do all these things. You think you are being one Nigeria? No, you are losing your place. Have you not noticed that only 2 people look for state of residence in Nigeria? Only 2 groups. And it's primarily because one wants to be able to travel anywhere. It's, oh dear, oh, we lost YouTube. And I didn't want to lose our folks on YouTube. Okay, we're good. YouTube is fine. I almost switched. That affected this trip, but I'm glad we're good. Someone says, and they both want to displace the ones they met there. Yes. See, the Fulani are more strategic. They are not trying to even. What they did was to become the lords of the space. They became the lords of this place. For them, it's not about shortage. To be honest, it's not about shortage. It's about wanting more. Fulani is not about shortage. It's about wanting more. And because if it's not about wanting more, why can't you buy hay and buy grass? Maybe we had a minister that was saying they were going to be importing grass from Brazil at the time. Even if they don't import it from us, that's okay. You can have ranches. Why must you be moving all over the place? But they also want that thing of own, but they want to own spaces in different places. The folks from the east who are giving the north 50% of the seats in 1950, they did it for unity. And Param is saying in 60 that they need unity. Why? Because home is overcrowded. And again, it's not an insult. It's just the reality. And I'm talking particularly to Yoruba people. It's not like I'm saying some people are bad. Yoruba people, listen. Home has limitations, and everybody has issues, right? We too go to UK, don't we? Okay, so good. That's fine, Abi. So you know it's not a jab. There's scarcity at home. There's small land, 29,000 square kilometers for millions of people. It's the most densely populated part of Nigeria, just like other places. I mean, one of the most densely populated parts of Africa. The place is small. People have to move out to take advantage of things. When they go out, they tell you about unity, so that they are not treated like they are not part of you, and you are not part of us. And it does not mean that you are bad or I am bad. It just means that you are not part of us. And then you see some Yoruba politicians wanting to become seen as progressive, shouting state of residency. If a Yoruba person talking about state of residency, you don't understand why people are coming to your space. You will lose what you have. That's one. And God is not creating more land. Land has finite supply. For anybody. So you're not going to lose what you have. And that's the only thing you can give to your children. But you see, Yoruba people, is even okay. The minorities. The minorities are the ones that will lose. State of residence, minorities will lose. And to be clear, all this American nonsense that people say, America, forget it. If you want to understand how to do this, go and check Asia and Europe. Today, let lands go like that. Just go to Isoko. You make sure you are even if you take one street in your neighborhood, or maybe let me not say one street, one part of your town, you are more than everybody in that place. You just move everybody there. You are now resident. That's why I'm 100,000% against the indigenous bill nonsense that we were talking about at the time. That's what it's about. You're going to displace displace the indigens. And when they talk, you say that, are we not one Nigeria? It's not unity. We are all united. Therefore, I can do whatever I like. But if you come to my own place on Bieda, like if you go to the east, I mean, you will know your boundaries now. Grok, Vodis copy is Yoruba. So he says they need unity. Why am I reading this? Because of what Oyema said in 1950, for the sake of unity. Don't allow gaslighting to actually make you lose what you possess because you're trying to prove unity. Unity will not come through erasure. I don't mind unity, just to be clear. I don't mind unity. I want to unite with you, build together, do great things, great Nigeria. But what I believe is that if I build my space and you build your space and the other person builds their space, for instance, we just read that Ẹkáàbọ state government, they just revamped the international airport. To the person outside the country, they don't know whether it's Ẹkáàbọ state government that did it or federal government. They're just happy that Nigeria, maybe they want to go and do something in Calabar or in Uyo or in Eket. They are happy that they don't have to fly to Lagos and then from Lagos go look for another connecting flight to Uyo. They can just go. So it's beautiful. So if Ẹkáàbọ does their own, Lagos does, Oyo does, Ogun does, Ekiti does, Osun does, Anambra does, Abia does, Bauchi does, Kaduna does, every part of Nigeria is doing, Kano, Zamfara. Nigeria has developed. But what makes you unique, you still put it there. You don't have to lose anything. I don't have to live in Hausa land and tell them that I feel uncomfortable with the fact that they are speaking Hausa. They didn't ask me to come to Kaduna. If I have a problem with that, I should carry my bag and go back to the southwest. I'm not supposed to go everywhere constituting nuisance and telling them to change their stuff because of me, because the Kinko is national language. Nobody cares. People should be able to build like that, which takes me to where we really started from and where we're going to end. It's actually quite funny that we've never said anything about the untold story of Azikiwe in the Biafra war. Maybe we'll do it on Monday. Or maybe today, if you see have time. So let's go back to the book by Papa. It's called Path to Nigerian Freedom, again published in 1947, and this is what he said. Awo. We could cite other instances, some of them in fact unprintable, but enough has been said to show that there is a big rift between North and South, which the government itself is sedulously widening. If the present tendency is maintained, when the Hausas come to their own, they will surely demand a Pakistan like Jinnah's Muslims. Be that as it may, that is a question which will not arise in the near future and need not dwell upon it. The important point to note is that the federal constitution is the important point to note is that a federal constitution is the only thing suitable for Nigeria. In other words, and we said all of this because I was talking about the federalism the structure that the British gave us wasn't unitary. It was federal, but was not the original kind. It wasn't the federal that I was espousing or championing. And what he was saying is that the ethnical groups, it's the federal system, but it is not Oyo State. It's not Kano State and Kaduna. It's Hausa State. Interestingly, this is actually how we did things before Imbos came. There are groups, there are independent groups within that group, but there's a group on its own. Let me say it this way. You had the Egba, you had the Jebu, everybody, but we together. It's easier to have those in one nation because they are of the same ancestry, the same language, the same, they even have a common progenitor or ancestor, the same culture. They are a nation, but there are tribes and subgroups within them. The others have the same thing. So why not just go to that while being in Nigeria? So Awo is saying, let's have a federal system, but the constituent units will be the ethnic groups. We must not wait until the situation becomes unduly complicated by long initial friction and irritation. We've waited 1947 to 80 years. It's 79 actually. To be fair, it's 80 because the book was written around 45, 46. That was published in 47. So it's been 80 years. We must not wait. We've waited, shall we must not wait until the situation becomes unduly complicated by long initial friction and irritation. Already, there are enough signals to put us wise. Strictly speaking, the political structure of any particular national group is primarily their own domestic concern. What does it mean, national group? National is not Nigeria. National is ethnicity. The political structure of any particular ethnic nationality, that's what we cannot understand why the Obas in Yoruba land or the emirs in the north should be entitled to the positions they occupy.